is Section 114, titled Restricting the Use of Chokeholds. And it has 3 subsections, A, B, and C, and I'll just talk about each of those briefly. First is, this is the Eric Garner Act. And for those who don't recognize the name, it was a man in New York City in 2014 that it was caught on tape as he was put into a chokehold, passed out on the ground, and left there until ended up passing away as a result. His cries of "I can't breathe" were ignored, and it led to a lot of protest. And in this case, he was allegedly selling loose cigarettes. Matt Taibbi wrote a book about this incident called "I Can't Breathe: A Killing on Bay Street," and he deconstructed the circumstances that led to Eric Garner's death, and concluded that basically the police had been told, "Hey, go clean up this corner, go arrest some people," and despite there not being any evidence that Eric Garner had been doing anything, they tried to arrest him and choked him to death when he didn't comply. And so this section of the George Floyd Justice Act is titled in memory of him. So chokeholds, neck restraints, they fall into 2 broad categories. So the chokehold, which just restricts the airway when pressure is applied to the front of the neck, and then a stranglehold, which would restrict the blood to the brain when pressure is applied to the side of the neck. And these have been controversial for a long time. In fact, many states and many municipalities have banned them. In fact, New York Police Department banned them back in 1993. Since then, they're banned in other states like Connecticut, Florida, New York, California, Wisconsin, Washington, in Washington, D.C. And so Part B of this section puts limitations on the eligibility for funds that states can get unless they have a law that prohibits law enforcement officers from using chokeholds or cartoroid holds, as described in this act. And that provision would go into effect for the 2025 fiscal year. So they would have until the end of September 2024 to ensure that they had such law in the book in order to continue to qualify for the Byrne grant program or the COPS grant program, as we talked about last week, which are some of the main ways that the federal government sends police funds to the states. Section C, subsection C of this act, it's that same prohibition on using chokeholds into Section 242 of Title 18 United States Code. And it would make it a civil rights violation to use those. And that pretty much sums up what I have to say about the chokehold parts of this section. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Yes, we have a question from Danilo in Wisconsin. The use of chokeholds would prevent the loss of life of an officer and maybe even potentially a subject, because we know that using a chokehold would probably be less lethal than overcoming the resistance by using a firearm. There's no question mark in this question.
No, I mean, but there's clearly some truth to that. That a chokehold would be probably less deadly than using a firearm to subdue someone. Is that a justification for leaving this practice open? I guess I should say that in New York City, when they banned chokeholds, they left in that same. I'm going to use the word loophole. I'm not sure that's the most precise, but I'm going to say loophole, that chokeholds could be used to protect the life of an officer. And the issue with leaving the loophole in place is that just it opens the door for the use of this dangerous technique. And so is there zero risk that you could, if you ban this, will lead to zero risk for officers? No, there's never a zero risk of anything. You could maybe make an analogy of like seatbelt use and say, well, sometimes people don't wear their seatbelts and they're thrown free of a car. So maybe you shouldn't encourage people to wear seatbelts. Well, statistically, you're much, much safer wearing a seatbelt. And by banning chokeholds, statistically, you will reduce the loss of innocent life. And so that's the direction that we should go in our quest to establish justice.
Didn't President Trump already ban chokeholds in 2020 after George Floyd's murder?
Short answer is that he issued an executive order that required states to pass such a law. But as you know about executive orders is they're not laws, they're executive orders, and so they can be redone. And for consistency and simplicity, it should be codified into law. He also, in that same executive order, I believe, started a police misconduct registry, which we'll talk about later this month, be expanded. But yes, he did take some executive action months after George Floyd's murder.